Hey guys, what's up? So, this video, I am trying to make a dice mold out of soap. Um, I don't have any silicone to make a silicone mold, and I wasn't exactly able to leave the house and buy some. So, I was trying really hard to find something around my house that I could use to make a mold out of, which is kind of what sparked this project. I used to make soap with my mom a lot, and so we still have a big bucket of soap meant to be melted and put into molds. And it usually would hold the shape of the molds really well, so I was like, hey, why not give it a shot? Um, the first batch I didn't melt enough, so I had to melt some more. But then the second batch I way overheated and it ended up messing up the hot glue that was holding the dice together, melting the cup, and all around it was just not great. So, anyways, once I got that good enough for a test, I decided I also wanted to try to make a mold out of clay. It's not the kind of clay that hardens ever, pretty much. It's an oil based clay. And honestly, I tried a lot of different methods for making a mold like this, and I can say with confidence that it did not work. So once the soap was hardened, all good, I had to cut I had to cut it so that I actually had a mold and not just a block of soap with dice in it. And that was a process to say the least. There was a lot of cutting involved because it felt like no matter how much I cut off to make it as small as possible, there was still always too much to cut through, and it took a long while, to say the least. Eventually, I did get it, but it definitely took some time. I also want to take this time gap here as an opportunity to apologize that I haven't posted anything in a while. I haven't had my camera for a couple of weeks, and so I'm actually really happy that I had this footage. I completely forgot that I had this footage, but I couldn't film an intro for it explaining what I was going to do, which is why it's entirely voiceover because, as I mentioned, I don't have my camera at the moment and I haven't had it for a while. So I'm just trying to get some kind of content out of this. I'm glad I remembered that I had it though, because it was honestly a really fun process that I learned a lot from, to say the least. It was very exciting, and I'm glad that I get to share it all with you guys, even if it took some time for me to finally get around to sharing it with you guys. But yeah, so as you can see, after a while, I finally got it to cut in half, but then I had some issues actually getting it out of the other half because it was really stuck in there. The problem with soap is that it's not exactly flexible, and I kind of knew that was going to be an issue, and I was trying really hard to be as careful as possible. But it also didn't help that I cut it in half not correctly. So where I cut it, the dice was still, it still had too much soap around it, such that the opening wasn't actually the size it needed to be. So it was a long process. I think what ended up happening was my hands like warmed up the soap enough that I was able to move it a bit, but eventually I got it out and I took to the garage. I kind of eyeballed my measurements for the resin, which was probably not wise, but I did it anyways. That's just how I am. And I think it was pretty good, I would say. It's just I made too much and simultaneously didn't put enough in the mold because, as you can see, it was very difficult to get it to go into the mold the way it was supposed to. It was definitely a process, to say the least. But yeah, so I just taped the two halves of the soap mold together to hold it together and put a lot of work into hoping that the resin actually got into the mold the way it was supposed to. And then I gave it, 1 to 2 days to really fully harden. And then I went about taking the mold off. I was really hoping, since I already had it cut in half nice, it would just, at least half of it would just pop off. But I ended up needing to go into the bathroom where I knew I could clean up. So just sorry about the mess. You can ignore that. It was a whole process that after a lot of messing around, I got it to break in half, but then the other half would not come off the dice, so I ended up needing to cut off the pieces and then wash off everything that stuck until finally all that was left was the dice. I was actually very pleasantly surprised. You could see all the numbers and everything. It had a little bit of a mistake because I didn't, like I said, I didn't fill it all the way, and you could see where the edges were from where you could see like a line from where the two molds were cut apart from each other, the two halves of the mold. But honestly, I think what I learned from this is that if it's done very carefully and meticulously and you put the time into it, I think that a soap mold could actually work, which is kind of a weird thought, but also really cool. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry it couldn't be a really real good video, but yeah, I hope you guys learned something.